Welcome to the Church Collective podcast. In this episode, we had the opportunity to talk to Carlos and Mariah from Mosaic MSC, and we ended up having just such an incredible conversation. It was so much that we're going to break it up into two parts. So this is the first part of our chat with Mariah and Carlos. Let's go.
And it's called This Is How I Thank the Lord. We've released 2 songs so far, and the whole album's coming out. And so it's been crazy. I mean, it's been 2 years of writing, and we produced everything ourselves, did everything ourselves. And so it was a long process because I don't necessarily think we knew what we were doing. So it was very much an experiment in that sense of like, you know, we've always written our own songs. We've done like some produce, like we've always produced things with other people, but never just like engineered everything on our own too.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty from 0 to 100 for sure of like, you know, trying to figure out everything. So it really did take us 2 full years to like do everything. You know, it's not just because we were locked down. It really was just because we were trying to make everything, you know, perfect and feel like have the essence that we wanted it to have. And so it's way scarier, I think, producing your album and then putting it out because it feels a lot more, even more so like a labor of love than even just writing the songs was, because we've had our hand in it, you know, since the conception of it. So yeah.
I'd love to hear like to like bring it all in house, because I'm sure there's a ton of worship leaders out there like, I want to go in house too. And if Mosaic's struggling through that, I'm dead in the water. Like what kind of encouragement would you have for that?
I mean, it takes time. It takes time. And also like it takes a lot of humility to know that you must start doing something in the direction that you think that things should go.
Yeah.
And you might need to scratch everything and go back to square one. Like we had to do a lot of that, and I don't know, and even like we were not married to necessarily to any of the ideas that we had. There's some songs that like the first single that we put out, that's called This Is How I Thank the Lord. That song, from the moment we wrote it, like we were like pretty sure that it was a special song, and we were like afraid to touch this song, but because like from the beginning we had a sense that the song has something very special.
Yeah.
But that was kind of unique in the context of all the other songs that we worked with. You know, like we had some songs that they just didn't make it. We had songs that we started one direction and then we had to change what we were doing. So I don't know, I would say to anyone who might find themselves in that season of like crafting their own songs and producing their own music, just enjoy it and be flexible.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Definitely. Being flexible and taking your time is huge.
What was the recording process like? Was it a live environment or studio overdubs or all in studio?
Yeah. So we went on like 2 or 3 writing trips, and we started sort of like the base of everything, like tried to kind of like create song structures and like, you know, certain pads or like, you know, I don't know, sounds that we were going to build the rest of the song off of. We tried starting there just to make sure like the vibe and the song structures were right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a room. It's literally an attic, and it was the only not like occupied space during COVID in our office building. So we basically just set up like a makeshift studio that literally only had speakers and a computer in it and like a couple keyboards. And we just kind of like would throw around ideas. We had 2 guys kind of like working on computers all the time, like with different sounds. We tracked the drums and the bass together at a studio. And that's the only things, and the upright piano.
Yeah.
But those are the only things we did in the studio. And those weren't even like at the same time. We probably did those like 2 or 3 months apart.
Yeah.
Wow. It was just like, we just built it, you know, we didn't know, like, we didn't want to do everything at once before we even knew what we were doing at that point. So we really like wanted to make sure that before we like went full out, that we had like a good baseline of things. And so we just tried to do it organically, like set the vibe and the structures. And then, we did drums, which we did drums totally blind. Like we didn't have anything else other than like some pads and some modular
like a basic roadmap of like a keyboard. And then we added drums and bass. We're like, this sounds funny, I'm like, there might be something here.
So it was really just all sort of, we took it in phases of like, are we going the right direction? Because we really did have to go back to the drawing board on a lot of the songs. So, we thought we had the right direction, and then it just, once it came down to it, it just didn't feel right, and we knew when we play this live, this is not it. Like, this is not going to translate. This is not going to feel good. We did, like, at our church, we just played through some, like, full band, just to see, like, will they take shape in any way live, which a lot of them did, and that was super helpful. One of the coolest things we did was we recorded all the vocals at the same time in the same room. So
here, like at the church, basically at our main auditorium on the stage, we kind of like did it on the round, and everyone thought that it was like, everyone thought that it was like the craziest ideas, that it was impossible to do. And Mariah was like, let's just try it and see what happened. And we did it, and it turned out to be super cool.
It just the feeling, because we wanted it to be not a live album because we couldn't do it live because it was COVID, but to have like, there's definitely a lack of like sometimes just that emotion or that like heart when you're doing a studio album that really comes across when you're doing a live album, or at least that's what we run into. And so we're like, how do we mesh those two things together? And that was one way of like just feeding off the energy of each other, like the singers, and being able to just kind of like do a bunch of takes where we're all sort of feeding off of each other. And it just ended up being really special because it had that essence of being live, but more of like a studio version and isolated vocals, and all that.
Yeah. So for the lead vocals, did you just step closer to the mic, or?
We had like a different mic for the leads, and they were like sort of in the middle back of the circle. It's kind of like we had a circle, the engineer, we were like set up on one half the circle, and then the lead would be like opposite them, and then the other BGVs would be sort of on the sides. And so, sometimes with like louder vocals, we'd have to like isolate them a little bit more than the others, or like certain parts of the song, because I do this where I'm singing BGVs on a song and I'm just doing my own thing, like, and you could pick it up in all the other mics. So, sometimes it had to look a little bit different. But yeah, it was a cool thing. I'm not sure how it ended up working or being a good idea, but
it felt like a big experiment, like for real. Like I think there's some songs that we went after we were like almost done with the song, we decided to retrack lead vocals, and we like, it doesn't carry the same energy, like it didn't have the same essence, and we just like stick to like the original like demo recordings. And we had to do that with like maybe like 3 songs, which I think it was like, it made it feel even more special, because like I think it's like different when you can sing a song, when you're singing the song in the moment that it was written, like I feel like the emotions and the understanding of the songs are maybe more vivid, they're more present, and you're less focused in trying to hit the right note or say the right word, you're like way more loose. And I think that kind of like helped. It just like at the end, it ended up winning over trying to do it perfect,
Yeah. A thematic, like lyrical thing you were going for, or is it kind of just maybe speak to what the Lord revealed in that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of even just the name of the album and the single that we chose. it ended up just kind of being, you know, I think it's happened throughout all of our records, and even more so this one, where, you know, we kind of have different groups that write. So not all of us write together, you know, every session will be like 2 or 3 of us here and there. So we come together and we show each other the songs that we've written, and then you kind of see, okay, is there like an overarching theme? And a lot of times it's pretty surprising, but definitely in this case, it was very much of like gratitude. And, you know, that's why that song, I feel like, really set the tone for all the songs that we would write, and even songs that had been written before that we didn't realize were about gratitude. And it's special because it didn't feel like a good time. You know, it like didn't, I think a lot of times we think of gratitude as sort of a response to good things happening.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a response to this, like, you know, assurance that God is good even in the bad times, you know, and that there are good things, and we just had to look for them, and we had to, you know, like weed through a lot of the bad things that were happening to us, you know, like we've all, the collective experience we've all had, and be able to see the good things. And, you know, there are endless good things that we could think of. And it just ended up being this very real gratitude that wasn't, you know, because things were good or because things were easy, but because things were hard and we had to choose it. And so, you know, that is a major theme throughout the album, even in like the beginning of like questioning that, and how do you explain that, and then to this, I think, Lord, which is like we express our gratitude in singing and worship, and that's essentially what the song is about, you know. And so that's really the theme of most of the songs.
This is Ryan, it's kind of funny because this song, especially this song, we wrote it in our first writing camp or first writing retreat that we did after being completely like isolated here in LA, not being able to go out. And then we went to Baja California, and we're staying at this house, like, right, beautiful place, like feeling kind of inspired by the environment. But then we got hit by a storm, like a hurricane. Like literally we didn't know that there was a hurricane on the way to the place that we were writing. Like we lost power
for like 4 days.
We lost power, lost water. They have to board up like the whole house. They had to cover up with like wood. And we're like escaping from the storm that's happening in LA and in the US, and we go down there and we find ourselves again in a different type of storm. And these are the songs that came out of that. And I think, like, even we look back, and I found that to be so beautiful, how like in the middle of being in a moment of darkness or a moment that you feel like you're losing hope, being able to still express your gratitude, you know, because I think that's what it also makes gratitude so much more deep, you know, like Mariah was saying, like it's different when gratitude comes out of a good thing that happened. It's very different when that gratitude is coming from stories, from a background that doesn't necessarily shows gratitude. So you see that in the whole theme of the album, and for us it's very special.
Somebody who doesn't feel it.
We can't hear you.
Second.
Okay, good.
Go ahead, Chris. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris, while I try to fix this, it's probably my AirPods dying.
So after you got, you know, you were doing it all yourself, after you got all the material together, did you do the final like mixing or mastering in-house too, or did you send that out?
Yeah, we sent that out. That ran over our heads at that point. But yeah, we were able to work with a guy named Chris Freely who makes everything, and he was awesome. And he actually, one thing we did was we did like a initial mixing kind of in the middle of the process,
because we're kind of stuck. I feel like we were like, okay, like we don't know, we like the arrangement, but we don't know if this is gonna sound good.
Yeah, when it's like all mixed.
Yeah.
So he actually like did like
Like a
rough
pre-mix,
mix
yeah.
of everything. And we were able to hear like, okay, here are the holes.
That's like pre-vocals, like basically like
Yeah.
music first.
So yeah, because we wanted to get a sense like, are we on the right track here? Also, like we didn't want to track vocals to like a crazy mix that we didn't even know if it was gonna work in the end. So we actually mixed everything, just like a quick like pass through everything, and that helped a ton because we saw so many holes in everything, and we basically like, I feel like we produced a whole other record after that. Like we added so much, and it started to take shape a lot more. So that was pivotal to the entire process.
Did he know that you were going to send him vocals that were like all tracked and around like that, or did he have any like apprehensions?
No, I think he knew. Like, we sent it. We had like the was like you said, the demo vocals, and they were already there, and he helped. But he knew that was not like the end, like the final.
Well, I don't know if he knew that we did them in the round.
Yeah, I don't know if he knew, actually. You're right.
But I didn't.
Oh, wow.
Say. You know, like we edited a lot of that stuff too, so we had to like go through and, you know, make sure that it wasn't like bleeding a lot. Like we obviously had, there are a lot of imperfections, and we knew that we just had to embrace that because that's where we're at, and we wanted it to have that essence too of not being like this is the most polished thing in the world, because it's not, and we don't want to pretend to be people that we're not, and we're not the most polished people in the world. And you know, a lot of stuff that we do is like quick because we want to move quickly with where we feel like God's moving, you know, and so we don't have the experience or you know the time to like, you know, make sure everything's, you know, perfectly polished. And that was a huge thing, was the upright on the album is out of tune. And so I think we were surprised by that, even though we were all there when it was tracked. We didn't hear it like quite as severely as it is on the record, but there are a few times that you'll hear it, and we kept them in there. And some of them we retracked, like the beginning of the side, like board, we took out like the bad notes. But on some of the songs, like there's a song called Grace, and there's a totally stripped down part of it where it hits like that, a tune note hits like a wrong, crazy thing. And we kept it because we just felt like, hey, this is like part of the story, you know, like this is the messy part of it that feels gritty, that doesn't feel polished. And in a lot of ways, musically, that's sort of the story of us, you know? And so we felt like, why not have those moments that musically reflect like, you know, what we're saying lyrically, what we are living out, you know?
What was your, like, the actual setup? Did you already have it? Like, did you have a laptop and an interface? Did you go to Guitar Center and like buy stuff? What was the actual gear used?
Well, not Mariah or I. None of us are like the tech people. So I don't know how to answer that question pretty well. But we kind of like, we built things as we were producing. Yes, we literally went to Guitar Center that is down the street here at our location, our offices and our building in Hollywood. They're down the street on Sunset Boulevard, and we literally ran there, got an interface, couple cables, bought new speakers, and little by little, like based on the needs, and like we have two guys on our team that they're like more like on the engineering side of things, and they know more about these things. It was like a little by little adding things to this studio.
That's super cool, because I think like some churches are like, I can't write a song or record a song because I don't have the gear, you know. Like I feel like that just proves how you could just get a laptop and just make art, you know.
I mean, we did it in a laptop. The whole album was done in a laptop for sure. And we recorded everything with this mic that I feel like everyone uses the same mic, SM7. We with all the vocals.
So
wow.
It really is like, I mean, we don't have, you know, like unlimited budgets. You know, and you know, everything we do is an extension of our church. So we really do have to be creative and resourceful in a lot of ways. And so, you know, we use what we have. We were able, you know, here and there to get stuff that we felt like we'd use for like the future. And as we went, okay, we can do this in the future. Maybe it is worth investing in. But it really wasn't until we were like, okay, can we can we succeed at this? And it was honestly the hardest thing I think I've ever done. Like, it was a lot of days that felt like sort of treading water and not really making a whole lot of moves forward. But, you know, we have an album that we're probably the most proud of.
Yeah, super proud.
And so it paid off, even though it was a lot of days of like, you know, this is how are we back at the same spot again? Like, how can we not figure out this song? How can we not like seem to be done with this? And it really was like, we probably would have kept going if it hadn't have been like for a deadline, or like us just having to be like, we have to stop because we will do this forever. Which is, I think, the upside of having a producer is that like it feels more done.
Like faster, right? Like you get to the end.
But
faster.
You know, I think it worked with our process of all of us kind of like having a hand in different pieces of it and making it feel more ours than anything else.
How many times would you try a song live before you're like, nah, this ain't working?
That is like, I mean, honestly, Chris, I think that's one of the things that was super like special and unique about this album. And like when you compare to the other stuff that we had done in the past, because like in the past, we've been used to when we try the song, we would write songs and then play them on a midweek or at a Sunday. And it just such, you know, I think like we have such an advantage as a church. Like anyone, I'm not referring to us as Mosaic, like anyone who gets to like play songs in front of a church has an advantage of getting like that immediate reaction to know feedback, to know if a song
focus group.
Yeah, correct.
The most ruthless focus group.
And if you have a brother that you know that is very honest, or a sister, about your brother, who would tell me like, yeah, that song is really bad, or you know, like
that didn't work.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's like that has been like the way that we have done it for like 5-6 years now. And with this one, from the moment that we started working on the songs, like we knew that it was a different process, and we approached the process with a completely different perspective. Like we knew, like we don't have, what are we gonna sing or what are we gonna say when you don't get that immediate response from the church? That was kind of like the challenge of writing the album. But at the same time, I feel like, at least for me, this has been like one of like the biggest surprise with the album. Now that we're back meeting in person here in LA, like just seeing how people are responding to the songs is very, very special. Like I was like, okay, like this is actually, because I feel like there's moments like working on the songs, I was like, oh, I don't even know if this is worship. I know that it's about God, you know, like it does communicate and it makes me feel closer to him, but I don't know if it's ever going to work in a like collective corporate setting. And it's been really cool to now play the songs and like see how people are responding and see that the songs even have like a completely different texture when you play them live. And I think that's pretty cool.
The crazy thing is that our last album came out after COVID hit.
Like right when it shut down. Sorry.
So I think Shutdown Here was May 16th. Album came out, or March 16th, and then album came out in May. So we played the songs twice because we recorded it live over 2 nights. We played the songs twice ever. So it was already like we had released an entire album that basically like we'd never get to play for our church.
Yeah. Wow.
So it like immediately was a shift because we're like, okay, I mean, obviously we couldn't have ever like seen that this was going to happen for this long, especially in LA, but that changed our perspective because we were like, that was the most proud we'd ever been of a group of songs, and no, we never get to play them for our church, essentially, you know. And so that was, we kind of had to go through that process with those songs of like, okay, well, they're basically, you know, we hope that people listen to them, but like I wasn't really consuming music for a while during the shutdown. You know, I'm like trying to do juggle all the other things and like adjust to life in a whole different way. And so, yeah, going into this record, it really was like, this is like X amount of time that we could be doing this. Like we could release another album and never play it live again.
Yeah.
You know, so kind of having had dealt with that with the album before, the perspective shift was really great. And I think the only reason it worked right now with this is because we've done it for so long, I think, because we've vetted every song we've ever written with our church, and we're able to like envision how things will like go, you know, and obviously we're wrong sometimes and things don't go as well as we think, or things go even better than, you know, we think. But I think a lot of times with the songs, we had to just sort of decide, okay, is this a song we're trying to make work in a service?
Mm-hmm.
And we had to do that before, you know, even when we're writing songs in church, it was like, is this going to work? And some songs were just like, this is a song that's more of like a personal introspective moment for people to listen to and have on their own time, you know? And so we really had to do that even more with these songs of like, okay, is this a song we're hoping will be the big worship moment, you know, the big reflective worship moment at a gathering, or is this the upbeat song that we want to be able to use live and in person? Or is this a song that's just for the record? And, you know, we had to make those calls sort of blindly because we had no way of trying them out. And what's scary is that we started church like, you know, 6 months ago now, probably, or like 4 months ago now. And we start playing all these songs already having submitted the record. Like, well, I hope you don't hate them because this is what's coming out.
Yeah.
And so, and it's been, I think, very different. Obviously, everyone coming out of that time is different. Church is different. It's been a very different experience. And so it's been a pleasant surprise to feel like those songs are very much putting music and words to a collective experience, which I think has been a good surprise and exciting.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Again, we'll have part 2 of our interview with Carlos and Mariah on the next week's episode.